Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how I color skin with Copic markers. The technique I'm about to show you will probably be a bit more difficult, especially if you are doing your first steps with markers. But I wanted to explain you my process nevertheless. So to start right away, the line art of my OC was done digitally and printed on ordinary office paper. Coloring a print of my line art isn't something I always do, but in my experience it's the safest way to go if you don't want the line art to be smudged. Oh, and speaking of my OC, whose name is Ian by the way, if you want to share your OCs, there is one special place that comes to my mind, and that's Amino, who are sponsoring this video. Amino is a network of communities for any interest you can think of, two of which are OC Amino and Art Amino. There are many more, so if you jump in, explore some of the other Aminos as well. You can use it as an app on your phone or from your web browser. One of the reasons I can always recommend to connect with a community of your interests is that it becomes easier to share your work. And that will lead to more people seeing it in the first place. But also for getting feedback from people with a similar creative mind as yours. Make artist friends and work together on your next project. You can find a download link to Amino in the video description, so do check it out. Now back to work. I get questions like what paper do you use quite often, so there's going to be a video about Copic basics and the accessories very soon. There I talk about why I like to use specifically ordinary office paper. But for now just know that I'm using office paper. As for the markers I'm going to use here, we've got Milky White, Raw Silk, Pale Grape, Eggshell, Light Grape and a bunch of cool grays. For the face I'm going to use Raw Silk as my main color because this character is a bit tanned. I spread a first layer across the face, working with a different amount of pressure to create a lighter coat of color in the center of the face. As everything is still wet, I use Milky White, which is a lighter tone, and blend it in using a bit more pressure. The lighter ink of this marker will push away the already laid down color, giving us an opportunity to create a better highlight. But we have to be careful. As long as the Milky White is still wet, I use the color Raw Silk again to prevent the creation of any blotches. Then I repeat the process until I think it's good enough to go in with the third color. To add a bit of variety to the color scheme, I use a very light purple, which is Pale Grape. I lightly apply a few brush strokes underneath the brows, the cheeks, the nose, and blend it in using basically the same method as moments ago. That is using Milky White to reactivate the color and Raw Silk to create the transition. With the Copic blender I can slightly push color aside where I painted over the lines, which is the teeth and eyes. With a bit of pressure and pushing movements you can get the white of the paper back to a certain degree, or at least light those areas up a bit. Then I use Cool Gray 1 and 3 to add some light gray shadows for the eyeballs. And when the color is dried, I use a red marker for his eyes. To add a bit of highlight, I use the colorless blender again and just slightly push out some of the red in the center of his iris. After fixing some details, I continue with the upper body. I use a cool gray underneath his throat, because I wanted to implement a bit of a tiger pattern in this design. But on that we will focus later. First we want to create a smooth skin, so just like before I use Raw Silk as a base tone and blend it together with Milky White, as long as both colors are still wet. With the collarbone area it is still easier to do, because just as with the face, these are smaller areas. That means it's easier to keep track of the wetness of your paper. As with watercolors, for optimal blending you need to work on a wet surface, which is why I use Milky White as a tool to make the Raw Silk blend better. Bigger areas though mean that there is more chance for blemishes and edges to appear with markers. So in my head I try to divide the upper body into little sections, or the abs to be more precise. One by one I color the muscles with the shadow and highlight tone, just as I did with the face. I try and push the darker color away with the lighter color to create highlights, and then I blend these little sections together once they are done. This step is very challenging. You have to work quickly and precisely on the details while having an eye on the whole area, so you're able to prevent unwanted edges from appearing by reactivating the color with new color again. So again, I can't recommend this method for beginners, only if you already feel pretty comfortable with markers already. But back to the picture. Next I'm going to add the purple shades that were used for the face to match everything together. For that I lightly place a bit of light grape on the darkest areas and try not to push away any color from underneath. I just want to add a little bit to it. For that I try to use as little pressure as possible. Then I use pale grape and milky white to carefully blend it with the skin. It's not unlikely that you have 3 markers in one hand simultaneously for this, because you want to make sure that those new layers of color won't harm your already good result. This time luckily everything went fine, but if you face troubles with deepening shadows or matching the tones, colored pencils can work magic to add subtle violets or other shades on your skin tone layer. Next up are the shoulders and legs. Basically it's the same method again. This time we have smaller areas again though, so it's not as difficult as drawing the abs. So I just go in with raw silk again, setting the shadow tones and blending it with milky white to create the highlights. Then adding deeper purplish shadows with pale grape and light grape. As I said earlier, to make the design of this character a bit more interesting, I chose to add some patterns and textures to the skin, so his hands and feet are going to get a dark greyish color that blends with the skin. I use Cool Grey 3 for this step, since it's light enough to be blended with the rest. I also draw some tiger stripes on his face, chest, shoulders and the stomach. When everything has its first layer of grey color, I'm going to deepen them with a darker shade of cool grey and start blending them. The darker grey shades that I've used in this video are not by Copic though, those are Graphmaster markers, simply because I only had those available. Graphmaster markers don't have a brush tip, but since they are alcohol-based markers as well, they still blend great with my set of Copics. I am going to talk more about different markers and Copic alternatives in an upcoming video, so stay tuned for that. So all I do is switching between colors, putting down some shadows with the darker grey and blending it with the lighter shade to create transition and textures. And that's basically it. Again, I want to say that some of the techniques in this video aren't the easiest ones. So please don't feel demotivated, since there are also easier ways to color your artwork with markers. I just wanted to share my process in this artwork of Ian with you. Maybe some of you even remember this character from the last time I talked about Osis. It's still the same one, but as I initially thought of him as an exorcist, and never really returned to that idea, I wondered what he would look like if he was possessed himself. I wanted to create some tattoos for the skin, and so I ended up with a tiger-inspired design. It's still just for fun and not really included in any kind of story or something similar, but it feels great to be inspired and put ideas down to paper. Thank you very much for watching. There's going to be another Copic related video soon, so stay tuned for that. And make sure to subscribe to not miss it. Also, comments and likes are appreciated. So see you next time.